Okay, so today is the 26th of March, although not for much longer where I am, which means we are literally counting down the days until the end of this month and when April begins. I'm premising this review by letting you know that there is going to be one video that comes out every single day from now on because we don't have a lot of time left and we have so much to talk about. But let's get into today's video, shall we? Today we are reviewing an amazing book. This one. The Heroes of Olympus, The Lost Hero by Rick Riordan. Okay, so from what I've gathered, this is a book that is a, what do you call it? It's a side-stepping series, I suppose, to the Percy Jackson series, which is a much beloved series that I have not read as yet. I'm so sorry about the glare. Can't really be helped. There's a lot of shiny things in the book, so I'm going to try to avoid the glare as much as I can. If it keeps happening, I apologize right now. Yes, this book, unbelievable. Now, if you have not seen my reviews before, I do split them up into two parts. The first part of my review is a non-spoiler part where I talk in as little detail as possible about 3 pros and 3 cons of this book so you can decide if this is the book that you want to read. We then go into the second part of this review where I discuss in spoiler detail what happened in this book and my thoughts alongside it. So, let's get right into discussing this one. Starting off with my rating for this book. This book received my second 5-star rating. And that is, in case you're wondering, on Goodreads, that is out of 5. So this book received a 100% rating from me, and that's only the second book this year that has received a 5-star rating from me, which says an absolute lot about just how good this book is. So let's start off with 3 cons about this book, but I'm already going to tell you the first con is that I can't give you 3 cons, I can only give you 2. So let's move on to the second con, which is the chapters in this book, and this is going to sound so pathetically minor, but this is where I really had to dig deep to find some cons here, because there's next to none. The chapters for this book are Roman numeraled, so you can see that there. Yeah, so the chapters are Roman numeraled, and I don't appreciate that because I don't really read Roman numeral. I remember growing up at home living with my mum, we did have a Roman numeral clock, and so I at least knew the numbers from 1 to 12, but other than that, I didn't. And I didn't like that the chapters are Roman numeraled. I get it. It certainly makes sense with the book and with what Rick Riordan's trying to do here. It meshes well with the book. I just personally didn't like it, but it's a pathetic con, but I'm trying to give you guys some kind of a con. My final con that I'm going to give you about this book is that for me, the first 16 pages made me want to DNF this book. This book is a fantasy book. It is a YA young adult. In case you don't know what YA is, young adult. It is a YA fantasy. The first 16 pages, in my view, were horrible. And I strongly considered DNFing. In fact, when I got to page 15, I was convinced that I was going to DNF by the end of that chapter. I guess Mr. Riordan had heard me somehow when he was writing this, going, oh, Mr. Francy is going to DNF this, because from page 17 onwards, this book became absolutely amazing. And the rest of the book more than makes up for the first 16 pages. So, what I'm going to tell you is, the first 16 pages you may not necessarily enjoy. If you come into reading this book for the fantasy elements and, yeah, the world building and the mythology side of this, because there is a lot of mythology that's brought up in this book. Because I don't think this is too much of a spoiler to give away. This book follows 3 characters who are demigods. So it refers to demigods as well as gods and goddesses that you may have heard of before, Greek and Roman. So if you're coming into this book for that, you will not find any of it, anything fantastically related for the first 16 pages. So, excuse me. So please know that. But I am not a booktuber who sits here and says, read through the slog because it's worth it. But with this book, I will read through the slog. It's only 16 pages. Get through that 16 pages and then enjoy the rest of the journey. Now, I have said before in other reviews that sometimes certain pages aren't required. I read a book in January, I believe, and I felt that the first 100 pages could have been completely cut from the book. The difference with this book is that you do need to read the first 16 pages because there are things that come up in those 16 pages that you need to be aware of before proceeding further along with the book. It does make sense as you do go along. I'm trying to be mindful that this is the spoiler-free version, but yeah, you do need to read the 16 pages, as dull as they may seem to begin with, and I promise you they are dull to begin with, but it's all worth it once you get past page 16. I'm going to quickly pause, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about the 3 pros that I'm going to give you of this book. So just a moment, and we'll be right back. Okay, so time for my first pro of this book, and my first pro of this book is actually an unpopular opinion, but I'm okay with that. I am more than okay to give unpopular opinions because they are my own. And that is, I loved the characters in this book. After I gave my review, I went and had a look at the other reviews on Goodreads for this book, and a lot of people, regardless of whether they give this book 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 stars, because it's rather polarizing and it does have many different ratings scattered throughout Goodreads. This is a very polarizing book. But a lot of people tend to agree that the characters, they aren't good characters, and yeah, people just don't like the characters, especially one of them. But I love them. So I'm going to tell you very quickly that the names of the characters are Jason, Piper, and Leo. And yes, massively major charmed vibes there with Piper and Leo. And I will tell you, there is a very much side character, like way side character in this book whose name is Phoebe as well. And I was looking for Prue or Paige, but hey, they didn't show up in the book. But I wonder if Rick Riordan likes Charmed. And Charmed did do a Goddess part 1 and part 2 episodes, so I wonder if he was inspired by that. Who knows? Maybe it's just purely a coincidence. But back to those protagonists, I have a lot of love for them. I think they bounce off each other really well, and I think each character is so individualistic in their own way. Again, trying to be mindful of the fact this is the non-spoiler version, non-spoiler section of this review. They are so set in their own ways and they are so very different from one another, but they each complement each other and they all work incredibly well together. And this is explained throughout the book. There are times when each character is a little unsure of themselves and that they don't think they're going to be able to do whatever it is they need to do. And there are times when they are told by others, yes, you will be able to do this. There's a reason that you are a part of this, shall we say, crew. Let's call 3 of them a crew. There's a reason why you are a part of this crew. You do bring something special to it, and they all do. They're also amazing friends, and yeah, I just thought they were wonderful. My second pro with this book, and there are so many that it's hard to just pick 3, but my second pro of this book is the world building. The world building of this book is absolutely amazing. Once you get over the 16-page bump in the road, bless Rick Riordan, seriously, those first 16 pages, you need to read them, but I just didn't enjoy reading those first 16 pages. The 3 characters end up at a camp. I won't say more than that, I'll just say they end up at a camp. This camp is amazing, and It is explored, and I really did appreciate that, but gosh, I want to explore this camp even more, and I have the feeling that they may well explore the camp even further in book 2. There are quite a few books in this series, and I'm already thinking I'm going to read at least book 2, and we'll see how we go, and possibly even the Percy Jackson series as well, just because of how much I love this book. But at this camp, I was getting Divergent factions / Harry Potter houses vibes. And I don't think that's too much of a spoiler at all. So if you have not read or seen Divergent or read or seen Harry Potter, then you're probably looking at me going, well, what do you mean, Mr. Francy? If you have, you're probably going, oh, in what way? All I can say is this camp, because our 3 protagonists are demigods, they are taken to a camp that is not for human, a camp for demigods. But before they can, it's kind of like in Harry Potter where the professor says, before you can be seated, you need to be sorted into your houses. There's not an official sorting that goes on, but there's a kind of sorting that happens. I'll just go that far. There's a kind of sorting that happens to determine what cabin you should be in and why. And oh my god, that is so much fun, and it's so much fun exploring the different cabins. I don't feel that Rick Riordan went into enough detail, but I feel like he purposefully didn't go into enough detail because there are so many books left in the series that he has a whole lot of time to explore as many cabins as he wants to over the rest of the series, which has me very much intrigued. The protagonists don't spend all their time at the camp, and I need that to be known. They maybe spend a quarter of the book at the camp, but oh my gosh, the world building of this camp has me so intrigued, and I just want to read the second book for many reasons, but a big reason is because I want to know more about this camp. I'm just so intrigued by it. But anyway, my third pro for this book, as we are getting on in time, is the amount of research that Rick Riordan must have done on Greek and Roman mythology before he started writing this series. Now, I naturally assume that the Percy Jackson series was done before this one because this says Return to the World of Percy Jackson. So I assume that, yeah, Percy Jackson came first. I have not read the Percy Jackson series. I want to read the Percy Jackson series. I don't know when I'm going to have time to read the Percy Jackson series. So we have to keep that in mind. I have not read that series. Please, if you've read that series, please don't spoil it for me in the comments below because I do plan on getting to it potentially before book 2. So we'll see how we go. But anyway, as this is the first Rick Riordan book that I've read, this is the first time that I get to say he must have done a ton of research on Greek and Roman mythology, and I really do appreciate it. There was a time in my life where I was studying Greek and Roman mythology like there was nothing else going on in the world, and so what I had studied, certainly it made this book even more interesting, knowing what I already know about certain gods and goddesses such as Aphrodite, Hephaestus, Zeus. The list goes on and on and on. But his research, you can tell that it was solid because he writes in such a confident way about these gods and goddesses, and he needs to know this information because they affect what is going on in the plot, these gods and goddesses. So it was so incredibly written. And the only other author that I've given a 5-star rating to this year is Brandon Sanderson with Mistborn, the first book, The Final Empire. Little preview here. Tomorrow we go into reviewing the second book, The Well of Ascension. Still haven't finished, but it will be finished tonight. But Rick Riordan will receive the second 5-star rating because it's just so amazing. If you have a chance to read a book and you want to read a fantasy, young adult fantasy book that is easy to read and just takes you on a quest, and it's so much fun to read, I highly, 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 highly recommend this book. I did not know the gold that I had struck when I purchased this book. This is my own copy. I'm really excited about the fact that it's mine too. It's not the library's. So, but this book was just so much fun. I cannot say from start to end, but I can certainly say from page 17 to the end was so much fun to read. So please do yourself a favor. If you have not read this book, feel free to pick it up. I have not, as I said, I haven't read the Percy Jackson series, but I don't feel that I needed to. Percy Jackson's name is mentioned, but the reason that he is mentioned is discussed enough in a way that you don't need to read the Percy Jackson series to pick this book up. But yeah, aside from Mistborn, this is going to be the second most recommended book you're going to get from me. So again, this is Heroes of Olympus, The Lost Hero by Rick Riordan. So that will do it for our non-spoiler version. If you do not want to be spoiled about what happens in this book, I do completely understand, and thank you so much for watching. I post videos every Wednesday and Sunday and reviews in between, but I'm going to be posting videos every single day from now until the end of March anyway, because there's just so much to get through. But thank you so much for watching, and happy reading to you. For those of you who are sticking around for the spoiler version, we'll be back right after this video unpauses by me. I'll be back in just a moment. Bye bye. Okay, so I am halfway through this review, if this is going to be a 30-minute review, and so I don't have long. I want my reviews to be short, but there's so much to say about this book that in fact I'm going to put it down somewhere. Can I put it here? Will it stand there? Probably. Oh, it kind of is. Yeah, I knew that was going to happen. Alright, let me see if I can find a way to make this stand. Just a moment. Okay, let's not move, and hopefully the book won't fall down, but I'm totally expecting it to fall down. Let's get into the spoiler version of this book, because I do have a lot to say and I don't have a lot of time to do it. First of all, a very brief discussion on the plot itself. Again, spoiler. If you're still here, you're going to get spoiled. Okay, enough warnings. Here we go. Let's get right into it. This book follows three protagonists. Their names are Jason, Piper, and Leo. And basically, we start off with those first 16 pages. They're in a bus headed to a tour of the Grand Canyon, and Jason is sitting next to Piper, and he has no idea what's going on. Oh, and by the way, forgive me for not saying Piper, because I'm Australian. The two letters together is pronounced as an A in Australia, so if I say Piper or Spencer instead of Piper or Spencer, please forgive me. Jason's sitting next to Piper, and he has no idea of what's going on. He doesn't know why he's there, and there is a coach that is basically, you know, those coaches. All right, everyone, listen up. One of those drill sergeant kind of coach people yelling at them, and he seriously has no clue what's going on. He knows that he has these two friends, Piper and Leo, but he doesn't know how he has these two friends. Ultimately, what ends up happening is while they are there inspecting the Grand Canyon, something happens. I'm trying to remember. These evil entities, anyway, they come down from the sky, and there's a battle that ensues. And basically what Jason ends up finding out, as does Piper and Leo, is that they are actually demigods. They were under the impression that they were human. They have been their whole lives, and yet, well, they are the result of a god or a goddess commingling, if you will, with a human. And so when you have a child that is born from a god or a goddess and a human, then they are a demigod, a half god, half human. So anyway, ultimately, Piper, Leo, and Jason are part of this chosen three, I suppose. Jason's more the chosen one, but let's call them the chosen three. And after this whole evil entities that come down to the Grand Canyon, it's kind of dealt with relatively quickly. Once that's all dealt with, this carriage flies down to the top of the Grand Canyon where the three are, and picks all of them up and takes them away. And this is where things started getting interesting for me, because at this point in the Grand Canyon, I'm like, this is really boring. And then all of a sudden this carriage comes in and flying them away, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm so on board, let's keep going. and they arrive at this camp called Camp Half-Blood, a camp specifically made for demigods. What is really, really, really intriguing about this camp that I couldn't say in the non-spoiler version is that this camp has multiple cabins, and each cabin is set up under the name of a god. Because if you are a demigod, as I said, that is the combination of a child being born out of a goddess or god and a human. So the goddess or god side is your mother or father, and they're a goddess or god. So each cabin is dedicated to the parent that you have, whether it be a goddess or a god. And I'm just naming 3, and I keep naming them repeatedly, but there are more in the book. Aphrodite, Zeus, and Hephaestus. And these 3 children are a child of each of theirs. Piper is the daughter of Aphrodite. Aphrodite is her mother. Leo's father is Hephaestus, and Jason's father is Zeus. So that's really interesting. And the jobs that each cabin provides to keep the camp going. So, as I say, very much Divergent vibes here, because in Divergent there are different factions, different communities that you choose to go into, where in this one you don't choose so much. It is just whoever your god or goddess, mother or father is. But in Divergent, with the faction that you go into, that faction does a job that assists the community. And that's exactly the same with Camp Half-Blood. The cabin that you go into, thanks to whoever your parent is, determines the kind of work that you're going to do. So, for example, Leo being Hephaestus's son, everyone in Leo's cabin is a child of Hephaestus, and so therefore they're very good with mechanics and other metals and things like that. Leo also has the power to summon fire at a moment's notice, which is pretty cool also. Piper has this really awesome power, being a child of Aphrodite, which I love in this book. It is the power of charm speak, and basically what that means is that she can will people to do things by magically charming them just by the way she talks to them. And I understand that there's already a thing out there that like vampires can do that kind of thing. They call that compulsion. I've read way too much fantasy, but I love it so much. But this is not so much compulsion in the way that comes about through vampire lore. This is more charm speak, it's very different. You don't have to maintain eye contact, but it's about the way that you talk to them that, has them, not really being able to say no. It's very similar to, compulsion, but it's not compulsion. Let's move on. I don't really remember what Jason's power is per se, but anyway, once they get to the camp, Leo finds out right away that he is the son of Hephaestus because reasons. He just finds out that he is. Piper finds out that night because she ends up magically getting this makeover in 2 seconds. They're sitting at a bonfire and all the members of the camp are just having this meeting, and then all of a sudden Piper stands up and she's just an average person that's standing up making a point about something that doesn't really matter at this stage, and then she all of a sudden has a makeover, this beautiful luscious hair, nice makeup done, she's in a ball gown, all this stuff, and that's because her mother Aphrodite did that to her to prove that she's Aphrodite's child. And Jason Piper ends up in the Aphrodite cabin, Leo ends up in the Hephaestus cabin, Jason ends up in the Zeus cabin, but unlike Piper and Leo, Jason is the only one that's in his cabin. He's kind of there all alone with this massive statue of Zeus, which kind of freaks him out. What the 3 end up finding out, or at least Jason ends up finding out from the eldest and wisest member of the camp, bless him, I don't remember his name, that he shouldn't be here. In fact, Jason is introduced to this guy, and this guy's first thing he says to Jason is, "You should be dead. You shouldn't be here." I mean, how unsettling would that be? Like, what? I should be dead? What are you talking about? But anyway, turns out Jason is a chosen one. He, Piper, and Leo have to go off on this quest, basically to save Hera, of all goddesses, which really I don't want to call Hera a goddess, but fine, we will. no disrespect, Hera is trapped and they're the only ones that can save her. Meanwhile, Piper's father, who is a mortal, is also trapped. Is trapped by these trolls, and she is told somehow these beings communicate with her while she's at camp that if she brings Leo and Jason to these, did I say trolls? I meant giants. To these giants, then they will trade Jason and Leo for her father. So, to cut a long story short, they end up going on the quest, and honestly, it's a lot of fun. They come into contact with all these different gods and goddesses, some of them just standard gods and goddesses from up there, and some from down there, and it just creates for a really compelling story. Ultimately speaking, Piper does end up saving her father, as does Piper and the other two end up saving her father, and they also end up rescuing Hera, and Hera ends up getting them all back safely to Camp Half-Blood, because that's the name of it, which is fine. I'll excuse the name, but because I love the camp so much. But they end up back at Camp Half-Blood, and everyone's really happy about that. But then they find out that there is another camp that is also going on at the same time that deals with the other side of the mythology. Now, here's a point that I forgot to say. Throughout the book, excuse me, Jason keeps quoting the Roman counterpart of gods and goddesses, while everyone else seems to be quoting the Greek counterpart of the gods and goddesses. What is determined ultimately, and Jason is starting to slowly get his memories back, but he doesn't have them all back yet. So, just going here, there, and everywhere with this plot explanation. What is found out at the end of the book is that this Camp Half-Blood is the Camp Half-Blood for the Greek demigods, while there is also a Roman one, and they think that, well, since this is a spoiler, I can say this. They think that Percy Jackson is there, because Percy Jackson has been missing since the beginning, so they think that he's over at the Roman one, which makes me really excited, because I love the Greek Camp Half-Blood, so I'm really excited to go over to the Roman one and check that one out too, and draw comparisons and all that. So it looks like, the way that this ended, it looks like the quest for book 2 will be to find the Roman camp. So, really, really happy about that. Okay, we're 27 minutes in. Let's quickly get to some of my thoughts on all of this. I loved each and every single god and goddess that appeared in this book. I love the topic of gods and goddesses, be they Greek, be they Roman. I've always loved the topic, but I've never seen them used in this way, where there are so many of them written into a little made-up story. I mean, arguably, some people say that the gods and goddesses did exist, and some others say that they don't, but generally, mythology is written in a way that you're either going to believe it or you're not going to believe it, but I don't class it as fiction, because it's not necessarily a story like this is. It's more of an explanation of beings that existed at one point or another, whether you choose to believe that or not. It's kind of the same as the Bible. God, Jesus, whether you want to believe that or not, I'm not getting into religion, but that's my point. There are certain religions that do believe in gods and goddesses, and so it's more of a religious thing. This is definitely a work of fiction, but they are Rick Riordan uses what he has learnt and intertwines all of that into his fictional story, which is just so much fun, and I really enjoyed every moment of that. Piper's powers of charm speak. I love them. I am all for a really hard action warrior power. Absolutely. Give me another Piper from Charmed, who has the ability to blow up demons. Give me Vin from Mistborn and the way she has her abilities, and give me Antoshka from the Night Watch, and many others who have these active rather than passive powers. I really am all about that. But Piper's power in this book, not in the show Charmed, in this book, is a passive power, the power of charm speak, but oh my god, I love it. It's just really good, and Piper needs to use her power towards the end, and she plays a very integral role, because Piper questions this along the way, like, why am I with Jason and Leo, I can't do anything. I'm basically going to be sitting back while they're fighting, but she plays a very integral role to them being able to complete that quest, and so I really appreciated her power. I love the camp. I don't think I can say that enough because I've been saying it this whole time, but I'm just going to say it again. I love Camp Half-Blood, and if there was a book that could just come out called Camp Half-Blood where I just get to explore Camp Half-Blood the whole time and we get to stay there the whole time, I'll be down for reading that right now. Who needs sleep? Let me just read it all night long. But I did love that. I do appreciate they had to go on the quest, but part of me wishes they could just stay at the camp. But anyway, so I could just explore it myself. Can I just jump in the book, explore the camp, and I'll be back in a few months. Bye, guys. But, but yeah, it was just an amazing read. The writing style, really incredibly easy to read. Part of me thought this might have been a middle grade, but I'm not going to call it a middle grade at all. It's definitely young adult, and it is even categorized as young adult. It's not categorized as middle grade. It is a tome, so it does take a while to get through, and depending upon how much you read each day or whatever your reading speed is, it will take you a while to get through this. This book is 550 pages long, so it is a tome. But all in all, this is the best book that I have read since Mistborn and Harry Potter, and that is saying a lot. It's only the second 5-star book that I have for the books that I've read this year. I don't give them out willy-nilly. I don't feel a need to go, well, I have to give one book 5 stars, so I'll give it to this one. Not at all. If a book does not deserve 5 stars, it's not going to receive it from me. I have a book this month that has received 4.5 stars. So it didn't get 5 stars, it got 4.5. So because of that, you know that when I rate a book 5 stars, it's because it deserved the 5-star rating that it received. And that's what you get with this one. Heroes of Olympus, The Lost Hero by Rick Riordan, and a 5-star young adult fantasy book that is so thrilling from page 17, because I can't say from start to end, from page 17 to the end of the book. You will not want to put it down. I certainly did not want to put it down. I struggled, and you can imagine the internal debate going on with me, considering I read this alongside Mistborn's second book, The Well of Ascension. So I was kind of struggling, going, which one do I read? I love them both. Can I read them both at the same time? We'll just, I'll be ambidextrous and have this book in my left hand and Well of Ascension in the right hand and just kind of read like this. But anyway, so absolutely loved it. What a great way to end the month. I am going to leave that there and let you guys go with peace, blessings, and so much love. If you have any comments, thoughts, and or questions, please leave them in the space below. I post videos every Wednesday and Sunday, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time, tomorrow, with another review. Bye guys, happy reading. Bye.